Yo guys, with season 1 almost coming to an end, we still don't know, probably it will still take a month, maybe more, we don't know, Blizzard haven't talked with us, but today I want to show again that the BGQ is still very long, and I want to say the effects it had in season 1 and the effects that can have in season 2, and I'm gonna share my experience with you guys. So, but before I start with that, I need you to understand that in TBC everything is a snowball effect. It's the same in Riot and to some extent Cataclysm. What I mean by this is, for example, in a game, if you play and you do like 2 or 3 globals wrong, you won't feel it in the moment. Depends on the matchup, of course, but it will add up to a moment where you will lose because of some of those globals. It's the same with positioning, it's the same with everything, and the same with gear. So, sharing my experience at the start of the TBC, I actually pre-farmed the gear. I got most of my blue gear, and I got the off set pieces. I had enough honor. I only had to farm like 20k, and even with the BGQ being super bad, I still got it before they actually introduced the horde versus hordes. But I don't play alone. This is not a 1v1. This is 2v2, 3v3, and 5v5. And my teammates, my friends, couldn't get the gear, or the rogue couldn't get the gear. The druid thought he could get the gear when TBC arrived, and he couldn't. What happened with that was pretty sad, actually, because all of the sudden you are in a spot where I'm fully geared, and in the first week, we do well, especially in twos. We do well. We are top 100 in the whole zone. Let me get away from the laughter. We are top 100 in the whole zone, but as the season progresses, my druid doesn't PvE, my rogue also doesn't PvE, which means that it reaches a point where they don't really have PvP gear, they don't have PvE gear or raid gear, and we start getting stuck on really low ratings. We are stuck in twos at like 1.7, and we are stuck in threes at like 1.6. And everything is a snowball effect, like I said, which means that if we can't get rating, we can't get PvP gear, and if we can't get PvP gear, we can't get rating. And if you can't QBGs to get at least a few pieces, then you can't get rating and you can't get a better gear. And this is the same in season 2. It will happen the same way. And in my position, I bet there's a lot of players that are on the same position where they can't really get fully PvP geared because they can't get in a BG and they don't really rate, so they get stuck on like 1.2, 1k, or even 1.6 like us, and they can't progress because they don't have the enough gear to progress. Now, as the season goes on and on, it will eventually get better because you start getting some gear, you start to catch up. The problem though is that the season will end pretty soon, I think. Um, there's been talks about ending at the end of September, some others even earlier, at like the 15th of September, so in like 15 days almost. And that means that if you weren't at a certain rating, you won't get full PvP gear. Unless you had like luck with weapons or, again, if you raided. Now, this creates a problem because, like I said, once again, it's a snowball effect where you don't really have gear. You go into an arena and someone survives at like 10%, 5%, or 1%. And if you had enough gear, you would be able to win that game or those games. And if you are able to win those games, you are able to progress through rating and get more gear. Everything is connected in TBC, RAT, Kara, and even to some extent MOP. Um, The difference here, though, is that in TBC you need a rating to get like weapons, you need a rating to get like certain pieces, and you need more rating to get more arena points to be faster at gearing. Now, this wouldn't be a problem if you could queue up BGs and get all of the PvP gear pretty fast, because then it means that if you didn't really get the PvP gear, it's because you didn't play the game, so you should be in a disadvantage. I always believe that who plays the game the most should be in a slight advantage, but at the moment that's not the case. The case it's actually a huge margin where you can't really compete. And a perfect example is actually my 2 team. My druid was at the start wasn't that badly geared, but as the season progressed, his gear started to be bad because other players started to get better gear. Since they got better gear, they got more rating. Since they got more rating, they got more arena points and they got even more gear. So at some point, me and my druid actually went to do some heroics so he could get some reps, so he could get some stuff from heroics, from normals, and you got like 3 new pieces. He enchanted them, and all of the sudden we go from 1.7 to 2.2k, and we haven't played yet. This is just to show that 1 or 2 pieces make a huge difference. My gear was the same. My gear was pretty much the same. His gear changed in 3 pieces and some enchants, and all of the sudden we gain 300 for 500 rating in like 2 queues or 3 queues. This is completely insane. It shows how important gear is. All of a sudden, we don't really lose just because people train me or they just see his gear and go on him. All of a sudden, we actually start winning those games. All of a sudden, he can be more aggressive. And like I said, once again, the snowball effect also works in game. So if you have better gear, you play in a different way. Now in threes, this is exactly the same. And this has been a problem where, for example, I'm going to give you one of the worst comps for us is WLD. And the reason is it's very scripted at the start, then it can have like 100 variables per play, but at the start it's very scripted. You sap the warlock, you go on the warrior. Now by going on the warrior, you get a lot of pressure on the warrior. You blind the druid once he comes out. Now the druid or their team needs to make a decision that is always on the back foot. They're always on the back foot because of the sap on the warlock. This decision is who trinkets. The warrior usually needs to trinket. The druid trinket actually doesn't really matter, and it's more of a bait. So as a roguelock druid against WLD, what you do is open on the warrior, blind the druid, and now if the warrior trinkets and he survives, which he should survive around 20%, even with the best gear, he should survive around 20%. Then all of a sudden, you swap on the druid and you have the warrior rotting at 20%, and you have the druid's trinket not really mattering because you do a swap on him. The warrior doesn't have trinket. You clone the warrior low and you go on the druid. The warrior can't get off the clone. The druid trinkets a kidney shot, for example, and you coil into a CS on the druid. And from here you have 100 variables. You can go back to the warrior. If the druid lines the warlock can finish off the warrior while the rogue is on the druid. Now the problem here is that without gear, and my team, every time my team gets into an arena game at this rating at the moment, we are always the worst geared team, always by 40% at least. We face warlocks that have full gear, we face rogues that have full gear, we face druids that have full gear. So the snowball effect or that strat doesn't really work, right? And instead of being 20%, the warrior is 50% because my rogue doesn't do as much damage, I don't do as much damage, and they don't really need to trinket. And since this strat doesn't work, we start thinking about other stuff like other strats when the only problem is actually gear. And I'm giving you this example because it's one of the many examples in WLD. It's one of the most played comps in TBC. And it just shows this snowball effect where we lose and the warrior or the druid or even the warlock at some point are like 10% when they should actually be dead. So the gear affects everything you do in TBC Arena, even your strats. And now this creates another problem, again a snowball, where you're with your teammates and you're trying to analyze something that is pretty simple to analyze, but you're a good player, so you try to analyze if we did something wrong. And even the games that it felt perfect, we are like, okay, maybe we need a new strat, and you try a new strat, and the same happens, because again, the main issue is gear, and you start losing and losing and losing and losing, and you start getting annoyed because you feel like you're outplaying. Like, guys, there's games where I actually do double the damage of the other warlocks while doing more CC. It's insane. There's games where I completely destroy the other warlock, even though the other warlock is completely fully geared and I'm not, and we can't kill. We just can't. We don't have a way to kill because everyone lives at 10% because my rogue doesn't really have gear. And those 10%, again, the snowball effect, even if they are not dead, they would be at least 5 to 1%. And that changes the way they play as well. But right as of right now, WLD can be aggressive with us even though we have the upper hand every single time. Or we should have the upper hand. And this is very important, and this is just one example to show that they need to fix the BGQ, because all of a sudden we are losing games that we shouldn't really, at least against the players that we are playing against. We shouldn't really lose these games, but since we can't finish, we can't win, and since we can't win, we can't get more gear. And this is really a fucking loop. It's a complete loop. You always get to the start, and the start it's always gear. And Blizzard is not fixing this. They are not talking. They've done Horde versus Horde how many times? 2 times, I think. And they still haven't fixed it. They haven't put AVQ, Alterac Value, which is the best honor per hour by far. Even if you lose every single Alterac Value, you will get more honor than any other BG. Now we have new offset pieces coming, and we can't farm. Like, come on. Now, how can you fix this? I've had quite a few videos where I said just give Horde alliance transfers, and I still agree with that. But at this point, I think it's a bit too late because you can't reliably ask people to just farm all the honor you need for season 2 in 1 week. Just go alliance and farm the whole season 2 offset pieces in 1 week. No, you need to give people time to do other stuff as well, real life stuff. So, and this is gonna be, maybe some people will hate me, but I honestly believe Blizzard should give maxed honor, 75k honor, and maxed marks for everyone, like everyone, and just allow people to get the offset pieces for season 2, like it was kind of an arena tournament realm. But yeah, guys, I just wanted to do a small video on explaining why the BGQ is so important. I hope you liked the video, and peace.